Oh my gosh.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Parente. Normally I'm anchoring there at Channel 2. Now I'm at my home, I'm chilling out, and part of the conversations with people that I admire, I respect, and my whole intention is to listen more. I never have a problem listening to the woman you're seeing right there, Such. Most times I'm listening to her sing. It's good to see you, Such.
It's good to see you too. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I really, you're one of the first people I thought of that I want to hear and I want to listen to you. Folks who aren't familiar with you, you've really had a lot of success. You're one of the finest singers, that sort of jazz, a little bit of blues in there. Your style is really unique. So let me ask you first off, if you've got both my ears as a white man and someone who loves you, who wants to support, wants to be an ally, also wants to know the hard truth of what you're feeling. Here, the floor is yours. What would you want me and other people like me to hear?
I would want you to listen to my experience. I think so many times people want to jump in, they want to help, they want to do all these things without actually amplifying Black voices, without actually listening and hearing how exhausting and tiring it is to be a Black person in America. I mean, I can't even tell you the ways that I have to navigate the constant microaggressions, the constant having to figure out, how do I show up in a space and seem less threatening than somebody else? How do I show up in a space? And I realize, like, for example, when I go on an audition for a commercial, for a play, I'm very well aware that when I walk into an audition room, I am not just representing myself. I don't have that luxury. I represent all Black people in that moment. And so how I show up not only affects me, but my whole community. And that is that's a lot for a person to carry, but that's something that we carry with grace. And we realize early on, that's just how it is. And, I've been talking to a lot of friends over the past few days, and so much of these things have been normalized. And for us to talk about it constantly, if I were to talk about all the little microaggressions that I receive on a daily basis, whether it be I go into an elevator, a lady snatches her purse just a little bit tighter, or just things like that lets you know that your personhood is just not as recognized as somebody else, it would be too much if I had to constantly talk about it. So we normalize it because we're like, well, this is just a part of our life, and we learn how to deal with it. But it's definitely gotten to a point where no more. And I have a 9-year-old son, and I think about how he doesn't have the luxury of having a bad day at school and acting out, because I know that he'll be labeled for the rest of his life as an aggressive boy who will turn into an aggressive man, because apparently Black boys go from being a little kid to being an adult. There's no in between, there's no adolescence for them. And so the fact that, I have to be harder on him because I know how the world is going to perceive him is just rough. And every time I have these conversations with him, every time I have to, tell him it's not the same for you, I know that I'm stripping away his innocence. And I don't want to have to do that. And I don't want the future generations to have to go through that, where they have to have these hard conversations with their kids all the time. And as to why this is just not fair. So I would say, listen. And also, as white people are educating themselves, a lot of times they feel like it is a Black person's duty to educate them. And I really want them to appreciate when a Black person takes the time to explain their experience to you, that it is a gift and it is not something that they had to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something they had to do. And to appreciate that, because it's a sacrifice. Every time I have to explain over and over again why my experience is valuable, why I matter as a person, and whatever else, it's traumatizing, because that should be the baseline. I shouldn't have to explain to you why my experience is valid, but yet I do. And so if a person of color, or if a Black person comes and takes the time to explain to you certain things or what their experience has been like, appreciate it. Understand it's a gift. Thank them for it, because it's not their duty to do that.
Let me take this one right now to thank you for giving me the gift of your time and your perspective. And I'm sure it is traumatizing, and it's not easy to talk about, and it's not your obligation to do. And so you're giving me a gift, and you know what? You're sharing that gift with anybody who's in the sound of our voice. So I'm sure we're all appreciative as well. I'd like to know, you said you've been out to a few of the rallies, the protests.
Mm-hmm.
What is your perspective on the power of the rallies, of the protests, and the ensuing, I guess I'd say, controversy where, you know, we've seen what the president feels like there needs to be a law and order. We've seen officers, some accused of going too far. In my neighborhood, out my window, tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets. What is your take on the value of these protests and whether or not, I guess I should say, should they continue? What role do they play in the state of America today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think protests should continue. I know that a lot of people are like, well, protests don't matter. I feel like they do. They've been occupying the news cycle for a while now. So clearly they do matter. I think there's power in them. There's power in unity. There's power in marching together. There's power in being able to look to your left and your right and stand in solidarity with other people. There's power in being able to say, you know, I stand with you. I see you. I see you. I feel like this is all that this is about. It's about our personhood. It's about being seen and being human, being seen as a fellow human. This is a humanity issue. And I absolutely am. And I think Trevor Noah stated this best. I was watching Trevor Noah the other day, and he was like, the thing with the looting and the rioting, am I a fan of violence? No. But do I understand it? Yeah. I mean, when you've had your foot on a people's neck for so long, for people to get that desperate, it must be a really bad situation. And I'm talking about, you know, Black people. I'm not talking about all the other movements that have sort of been co-opting it also, co-opting the Black Lives Matter movement. But, you know, Trevor Noah was saying that society is a social contract between the citizens, the law enforcement, and the government. And if one side of these people are not holding up their side of the contract, then why should the citizens? And I think that the looting and the rioting it's a symptom of a larger problem. And does violence help that actual problem, or does it just incite more? When I went to the protest, first off, so I was there on Saturday, and the night before there had been tear gas. So it was like Saturday afternoon. And there was a part of the demonstration where we all laid down on the ground and we said, I can't breathe, for 5 minutes. And of course, I completely lost it. But I could still feel the remnants of the tear gas from the night before. I was choking, I was coughing, my eyes were burning and itching. And this was hours upon hours later, probably half a day later. And so I'm thinking, what in the world? I spoke to another protester who showed me the size of these rubber pellets, these bullets, and they're huge. I mean, they could take somebody's eye out. And I feel like at this time, I feel like our law enforcement should be standing with us. They should be marching with us. They should be taking a knee with us. It's just, I feel like it's furthering the narrative that they're not here to serve and protect us. I know that in some other states that has happened, and I think that is such a beautiful thing. But no, I'm not a fan of that form of, that's how you're going to bring change. No, that's not how it's going to be. Clearly, all we want is to be seen, to be heard, and we want to be seen and heard from our law enforcement, our local officials, our government officials. That's it. And so, yeah, it's just a rough situation.
Mm-hmm. You know, in talking to a couple of my other friends that I admire and respect, I'm hearing that, you know what, Chris, you may be a decent guy. You may not think you are a racist, and you may not be, but you're a part of a system that is.
Absolutely.
I hear over and over again, institutionalized racism.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's break that down. Do you feel, have you ever had any interactions, or what is your perspective on and we can speak in a general sense, our police departments? Do you feel there's institutional racism sort of baked in to the way we police our communities?
Absolutely. I personally feel, and I don't even know if this is feasible, but I feel that policemen, policewomen should live in the neighborhoods that they are here to serve and protect. I feel like once you are surrounded by people, it's a lot harder to hate them. It's a lot harder to have stereotypes when you're in the community, when you know them, when you're used to seeing them all the time. So I just feel like that would be a huge difference if they lived in the communities that they were meant to serve and protect, because there is no separation. They're a part of it, right? Yeah, it's totally baked in. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm terrified of the police. I promise you that if anything were to go down in my house, if anything were to be, I have a Black son. I can't imagine willingly inviting the police into my house. Do you know what like, it's that scary. It's that much life and death for me. I would rather call a family member, a friend to come help me out instead of the police. So, I mean, there have been times where I've been pulled over by cops and I was terrified. I started recording because I was like, I don't know how this is going to end. That's the reality for me, So, yeah, institutional, it's in everything. It seeps into everything. It's not just, of course, when it comes to education and law enforcement and housing and, the socioeconomic gaps, but it's also like the media and how beauty is portrayed. I mean, everything that I'm absorbing is telling me that I'm less than constantly. And so when you're able to see Black people rise up out of that, it's even more incredible because you're constantly getting images and rhetoric that you don't matter all the time. And through actions, through media, it's constant.
Something you said, and my buddy Shabli said the same thing, that he feels like when he walks in a room, when he walks down the street, when he interacts with anybody else, the first thing he is expected to do is to prove to people that he's not a threat. So before he can ever let somebody get to know him, he has that added, he says, burden, unfairly, of I have to prove to you, Chris, that I'm not a threat. You mentioned that earlier too. Can you expound on that? Do you feel like when you walk through your day-to-day life, whether it's the grocery store or a recording studio or in the neighborhood with your son, that you feel as if you have to show people or somehow prove to people in a way that I would not have to do that you're not a threat?
Absolutely. And because I know that I represent, I think the reason why there's this burden of proving to people is because we realize that we represent more than just ourselves, right? Like if you walk into a room, nobody's going to be like, oh, all white men are like, it just doesn't happen. But for us, I understand that I represent all Black women, all Black people. I may be that representation for whatever room I'm in. And so, yeah, I usually go into a room. I always want to make sure I have a smile on my face. I want to have a nice, resting face because there are so many obstacles to overcome to begin with. You know what I'm saying? So if I come in and I just, I'm not looking super nice, there's a stereotype of being the angry Black woman. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've held my tongue because I'm like, well, I don't want to come off this way. And the industry that I'm in is small. I want to be appeasing. I want to, and then of course there's the added thing of being a woman. There are just so many things in which, yeah, I want to come in and be the most unassuming person. And I'm always thinking about how different scenarios can play out. And if I act this way, then this can be the best outcome for me. And all these extra things that is just a part of my life.
I think that's something that I'm waking up to, and it's been a long process for all of us, but the idea of, when you hear, I think when white people, I'll just speak for myself, when you hear white privilege, sometimes offensiveness comes up, right?
Yes.
Wait a minute, I'm not a racist, and I honestly don't believe I am, but I'm seeing now that doesn't mean I don't have white privilege.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that it's not working to my advantage in ways that I'm not even necessarily aware of.
Yeah.
And I am married to a proud Colombian, and I'm seeing it too in the context of when the two of us go out, in the way he might be treated differently than I am. So let me ask you, to those of us who want to be allies. And there's also, you know, let's keep this real. Sometimes I feel like maybe we don't, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I don't say anything. And I don't want it to be like that. If I say something wrong, you know, or offensive, correct me.
Right.
Ultimately, what I want to know is how you said, listen, that's good. How else can people who are good intentioned, white people who are of good intentions, how can they support you and the African American community and people of color? What's something that I could do starting tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, first off, Chris, I feel like you are doing it. Let's just keep it real. You're using your platform. You're amplifying Black voices, which is so huge. That's so huge. Amplify Black voices, Black businesses. I would say you guys can donate to the bail funds across the nation for the protesters that are being unfairly, you know, jailed and imprisoned. And yeah, listen. I would say, listen, amplify Black voices. That's the biggest thing. I have a song on my album called Melanin that I do with my dear friend. She's a performance poet and is an activist and is in Denver. Her name is Carrie Joy. And one of the things about the song, it's about Black power, but also that there's this narrative that we cannot be the heroes in our own story. Because so many times throughout, it's not even really necessarily throughout history, but white people are always the ones who come in and swoop in, right, and save the day. And the reality is that we need your support, but ultimately we can be the heroes of this story, right? So yeah, I would say support, 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 and don't be nervous about saying the wrong thing. I feel like, you know, vibes don't lie, energy does not lie. You come in, you know what I mean? You come in, we can smell authenticity. Come in, be yourself, and we will welcome you with open arms. There's no perfection needed. I feel like now is not the time to be walking on eggshells. It just isn't.
Well, speaking of amplifying Black voices and supporting Black business, let's take a second before we even start to wrap it up and amplify your work. Because you've been on the Everyday Show, you've been on the Channel 2 Morning Show, and we talked before. I was like, girl, I want you to come sing at my reception, which might happen because ours got, because of COVID, it's delayed till next year. So I'm going to try to see if I can book you for the reception.
Yes, please do.
So let's support everybody listening. How can they support you as an artist? A website? Is there an album out? Where do you want people to go? Spotify, lay it out.
Absolutely. So my latest album is entitled Wide Nose, Full Lips. And interestingly enough, I mean, I didn't know how fitting it would be for this time. It basically just, you know, there's about life and love and whatever else, but really it's just my own story about falling in love with who I am, embracing all the things that make me having a wide nose and full lips and being Black and loving all the things that come with the skin that I'm in. And so that album is available everywhere on iTunes, Apple Music. You can go to Spotify. My website is iamsuch.com, iamsuch.com. I have shirts. I have
masks. I saw masks.
That's right. Yes, I have those. I have, you know, support me any way you can. On Instagram at @IamSuch. I'm using all my platforms right now to, you know, further the work of Black voices, the Black Lives Matter movement, because it is so, so important. Now is not the time to be silent, y'all. It just isn't. Now is not the time trying to be, you know, all extra like, oh, I'm worried about who's going to think what. It's time to stand up for what's right. And you know what's right in your heart. So yeah, you can find me on every single platform, on Twitter @Such. And I love to interact with everybody. I will chat with you. You message me, I will respond. And I will keep it 100 because that's what I do.
You do. And anybody who hasn't heard Such sing, you'll be the better for it. Because, you know, I've had a lot of guests come through the studio. I've met a lot of singers. And your voice really is a gift. I love, you know, and this will serve as contractual evidence that you did agree to sing at my reception next year.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
Let's just take this is a quick, I don't want to divert too much time from what really matters, but I do want to ask, as a Black woman and an artist, I went to your website and I was like, oh man, here are these concert dates that I'm sure aren't going to be happening. How has COVID-19 impacted you as a performer?
Oh my gosh, so much. Up until like my last performance in front of a live audience was March 9th. I sang the national anthem at the Nuggets game. And then 2 days later, the NBA shut down. That's when I knew it was getting real. I was like,
yeah, I know.
Oh, it's done. Like the NBA, come on now. And I think I just finally have like started to wrap my mind around the fact that I'm not going to be performing in front of a live audience probably for a while. And it's heartbreaking for me because it's my outlet. It's how I connect with folks. Like, I love performing live. Like, it's everything. But I am thankful. I've been having Zoom gigs, which has been really great. Right. Being able to, I've been recording and writing. And so I know we'll come out of this on the other side stronger, but it's a struggle. It's not easy. It's tough, especially since I was so go, go, go right before, touring like crazy, had a whole bunch of things planned. And then it was like, came to a full stop, which of course there's always silver lining, right? There's some things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have time to think, which is also why I think everything that's going on right now, I don't know that this would have happened had COVID-19, if there was no coronavirus, because I feel like people have more time to think. They get to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, how am I showing up in the world? I feel like, the coronavirus, of course, has shown also racial disparities with who is getting hit more, the death toll, right? So there are so many things that are happening in which we're really having to take a hard look at ourselves as a society and be like, yo, how do we want to leave this world, right? What do we want the next generation to, how do we want them to see the world? How do we want them to function in this world? And it's been a huge wake-up call for me. And I think it's a huge wake-up call for all of us. So I feel blessed to be an artist. I feel so deeply about everything. And I think that's what it means to be an artist. We feel, we pause, we take it all in. And I do my best, I do my best with the platforms that I've been given, and I know we'll come out of this stronger.
That's a great thing you just said. I hadn't really put in context. Maybe all this crap with COVID-19 and all the pain and the suffering and the job loss and the isolation, maybe it also allowed us to stop and really re-examine who we are and where we want to go and who we want to be. Good. God, that's powerful. So as we start to wrap it up, two things. You mentioned your son. I would like to ask what your vision. I'm a person, I believe in vision. You create the vision in your head, your mind, and then it is created out in the world. What's your vision for what you would like for your son as he grows into manhood and hopefully has a wonderful, beautiful life? What is your vision for the world he gets to live in?
Oh my gosh, I want him to be free. Like truly, truly free. I want him to live in a world where he doesn't have to wear his Blackness, right? Like the first thing that everybody sees is that he's a Black man first, that you're able to see who he is as a human. All the joys, the sadness, whatever it is. I want his personhood to be recognized in its fullness. And I want him, I think of what freedom looks like. I want him to be safe. I want him to be safe. Safe and free would be the two things that I could think of. And I want him to live out the fullness of his existence and for it to not be hindered by the color of his skin.
That's a hell of a vision.
Yeah.
A hell of a vision. I will ask you too. I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't. Again, you talk about like you are doing me a great gift by even speaking. So, and I always feel the same way with performers. So I don't want to, you don't got to sing a whole song.
Yeah.
Is there a song in particular or a lyric or a line that is touching you, or if you feel is relevant, or when you sing it for the next time, it's going to have more meaning in light of everything that's happening right now in America?
Absolutely. I feel like a song that has always resonated with me, but has been resonating with me more, and I've been singing it a lot, is the song Rise Up by Andra Day. Especially as I feel like so many people are stepping up in ways that they haven't before, calling out injustice in ways that they haven't before, saying, yo, I don't necessarily care what the repercussions are, as far as like just people that are really being brave. And they're not just being brave for themselves, but they're being brave for other people. That's the world that I want to live in, the one where we care about one another, where we're not just like, oh, it's about me and mine, but it's about all of us. And so I can most definitely sing you a little bit of that song. Is that cool? Okay. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Ooh, mountains, we gon' walk it out. Ooh, mountains, and I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. And I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
Brava. Ooh, man, you never fail to give me goosebumps. I love you. Thank you for giving me the gift of your voice and your song and your story. And I hope that you will, when all of this clears, and I hope all of it clears and we rise up. But when we're able to meet again,
Yeah.
I hope you'll let us all know where you're going to perform first, because I want to be in the front row.
Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you, Chris, like I've been talking to my band members, and I think there are so many things that we've taken for granted that now, like, I'm going to be like, I want to hug somebody. Like, I miss hugs, okay? But I really do think that, like, the first time that I perform again with a live audience, it is going to be, I'm going to be in tears. There's just no way around it. There's something so magical about performing live where it can only happen in that moment, right? Because there's only those people in that room, and we're co-creating like magic in that moment. So I can't wait to do it. And I know it's going to be freaking incredible. So yes.
I will be there, and I'll have a box of Kleenex. I'll heat it up to this. Here you go. You know, that gives me, and you know, I have a special place in my heart for all artists too. And that's a whole nother conversation we can have. You know,
yeah.
Now more than ever, we need artists, musicians, poets, writers, singers, and we're also finding ways to express it because the stages are all empty. Just really.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
I love you. I'm going to post this across all my social media, and I hope everybody out there, if nothing else, I hope most of all everybody listens. I hope second of all everybody goes to your website, looks for the album, Wide Nose Full Lips, downloads it, buys it, supports you, and they get the gift of your music. So thank you such.
Thank you.
All this is over.
Thank you. Love you, Chris.
I love you too.